Hi, friends. I'm your old pal, Papa Dale, here once again. Just to remind you, I'm a retired pastor, teacher, theologian, and professor with over 50 years of service to the Lord Jesus Christ. My name is Dale Warren, and professionally I'm known in my writings and teachings as D.A. Warren. But my friends just call me Papa Dale, and you can call me Papa Dale. You can see the details of my testimony, family life, education, and ministry experience on other videos on this playlist. But for now, let's get right into today's topic. And today's topic is a beautiful one. It's love and praise poetry, or love and praise literature. This is lecture number 17 of the JHI Jan Hus Institute BA in Biblical Literature degree and lecture. And so let's move right into it. Love poetry is where we begin. Biblical love poems primarily refer to the romantic and passionate expressions found in the book of Song of Songs, also known as Song of Solomon. This book is one of the poetic books of the Old Testament, and it's unique for its focus on the theme of love and desire, celebrating romantic and sensual love between a bride and groom. Well, what are the characteristics of biblical love poems? They include 1. Romantic and sensual imagery. The Song of Songs is known for its vivid and sensual imagery. The language used in the book is highly poetic, employing metaphors and similes to describe physical attraction, beauty, and romantic longing. 2. The celebration of love. The book is a celebration of love and affection, focusing on the joys of romantic relationship and desire. It expresses the beauty of love in its various forms, from physical attraction to deep emotional connection. 3. There's symbolism and allegory involved. While the primary interpretation is often seen as a celebration of human love, some traditional and theological interpretations view the text as an allegory of love relationship between God and his people. This allegorical approach interprets the imagery of love, desire, as symbolic divine love. 4. It's in dialogue form. The Song of Songs is structured as a dialogue between two lovers, the bride and the bridegroom. The conversation between them reveals their mutual admiration and longing, creating a dynamic and intimate portrayal of their relationship. Well, let's look at some of the themes in the Songs of Solomon. 1. Beauty and desire. The text frequently describes the physical beauty of the beloved and the intensity of desire. The lovers use elaborate and sensual language to praise each other's physical attributes and express their passion. 2. Mutual admiration. There is a strong emphasis on mutual admiration and respect. Both the bride and bridegroom speak highly of each other, highlighting qualities that attract and endear them to one another. 3. Romantic union. The book portrays the desire for union and intimacy between the lovers. It reflects the longing for closeness and joy found in their relationship. 4. The power of love. The text celebrates the transformative and enduring nature of love. It portrays love as a powerful force that transcends challenges and is worth cherishing and protecting. Well, now let's look at the literary and theological perspectives. These include 1. The literary style. The Song of Songs is written in an elaborate and lyrical style, employing rich imagery and metaphorical language. Its poetic form contributes to its beauty and impact as a love poem. 2. What are some, well, no, not 2, that's the literary style. But what are some of the interpretations? There is a literal interpretation, seen as the celebration of human love and desire, reflecting the beauty and joy of romantic relationships. Then there is the allegorical interpretation. This is traditionally interpreted as an allegory of God's love for Israel or Christ's love for the church. This view sees the love poetry as symbolic of the divine-human relationship. Well, let's look at the cultural context. The context reflects ancient Near Eastern marriage customs and love poetry. Understanding the cultural context helps to appreciate the nuances and the significance of the imagery used. What about theological reflection? The love poetry in the Song of Songs invites reflection, meditation on the nature of love, beauty, on the nature of desire. It can be seen as contributing to a broader understanding of how love is valued and celebrated within a biblical network. Biblical praise and literature. Biblical praise literature is a genre of its own, but it's also connected to love poetry, as we shall see. Biblical praise literature consists of texts in the Bible that focus on worship and adoration of God. These writings celebrate God's attributes, deeds, and faithfulness, often expressing deep gratitude and reverence. Praise literature is characterized by its emphasis on extolling God's greatness, majesty, and benevolence. Examples of biblical praise literature include Psalms. The overview of the Psalms, one would say, the book of Psalms is a primary source of biblical praise literature. It contains a diverse collection of songs, hymns, and prayers that express worship and adoration and thanksgiving to God. Notable songs among them include Psalm 8, praises to God's majesty and the honor he has bestowed upon humanity. Psalm 29 celebrates the power of God's voice and his reign over creation. Psalm 100, this is a call to worship with joy and gratitude, acknowledging God's goodness and faithfulness. Hannah's song in 1 Samuel 2, verses 1 through 10. The overview of this is that the song is a heartfelt expression of gratitude from Hannah after the birth of her son Samuel. Samuel the prophet. Now, this song praises God's sovereignty, justice, and power. The themes of this song include God's exaltation of the humble, his justice, and his role as a divine ruler. Then you have the very famous Mary's Magnificat in Luke 1, 46 through 55. The overview of this is Mary's song of praise, known as the Magnificat, is a response to the angel's announcement of her role as the mother of Jesus. Can you imagine? It expresses joy and gratitude for God's blessing and his reversal of social order. What are the themes of the Magnificat? God's faithfulness, his mercy, and the fulfillment of his promise. Another example is Zechariah's Benedictus in Luke 1, 68 through 79. The overview of that is Zechariah's song. It's known as the Benedictus. It's sung after the birth of his son John the Baptist. It praises God for his redemption and the coming of salvation through the Messiah. The themes of it are God's deliverance, fulfillment of prophecy, and the promise of salvation. The Song of the Redeemed of Revelation 15, verses 3 through 4. Another prime example. The overview of this is that it's sung by those who have overcome the beast. This song praises God for his just judgments and mighty works. It reflects the ultimate triumph of God's kingdom. The theme of it is God's justice, his victory over evil, and his eternal reign. Now, themes in biblical praise literature include God's majesty and power. Praise literature often emphasizes the grandeur and omnipotence of God. It celebrates his creative power, his control over the universe, and his sovereign rule. Other themes in biblical praise literature include gratitude and thanksgiving, expressions of thanks for God's blessings, deliverance, and providence. These are central. This includes acknowledging his role in personal and communal well-being. Other themes would include divine faithfulness. Many praise texts highlight God's faithfulness to his promises and his steadfast love. They recount the fulfillment of God's commitments and his unwavering support. Another theme, worship and reverence. The texts reflect a deep sense of awe and reverence for God. They call believers to worship with sincerity and joy, recognizing God's supreme worth. Another theme is the celebration of salvation. Praise literature often celebrates God's acts of salvation and redemption. It reflects on the joy and relief that comes from experiencing deliverance and forgiveness. Well, there's also literary and theological perspectives. The literary style is one of those. Praise literature typically uses poetic forms, including parallelism, metaphors, and vivid imagery. This style enhances the expression of reverence and joy. Then you have theological reflection. These texts provide insight into the nature of God's character, his relationship with humanity, and the appropriate response of worship and adoration. They contribute to a broader understanding of divine majesty and faithfulness. And then you have cultural context. Praise literature often reflects the cultural practices of ancient Israel and early Christian communities. These include their forms of worship and expressions of devotion. In conclusion, biblical praise literature plays a vital role in expressing worship and adoration of God. Through its hymns, songs, and prayers, it celebrates God's attributes, deeds, and faithfulness, offering a model for worship and gratitude. These texts provide a rich source of inspiration and reflection on the nature of divine majesty and the appropriate response of reverent praise. Now, there is a connection between biblical love poetry and praise literature, particularly in how both forms of expression are used to communicate deep affection, devotion, and reverence. This connection can be observed in several ways. The language of love. Expressing love for God in biblical literature, the language of love poetry, often mirrors the language used in praise. For example, the Psalms frequently use poetic expressions of love and longing for God, akin to how love poetry expresses devotion between human lovers. Psalm 42 verses 1 through 2 is a good example. As the deer pants for the streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God. Now this is a poetic expression of deep desire and longing and love for God that resembles the intensity found in love poetry. Then you have the Song of Songs. The Song of Songs, or Song of Solomon, is a prime example of biblical love poetry. While it primarily depicts romantic love between a man and a woman, many interpreters, especially in Jewish and Christian traditions, see it as an allegory for the love between God and his people, or between Christ and the church. This allegorical interpretation connects the passionate love described in the poem with a kind of devotion and praise that believers offer to God. Well, there's also the connection by symbolism and metaphor. You see, marriage itself is a metaphor. The Bible frequently uses marriage as a metaphor for the relationship between God and his people. The love poetry in the Song of Songs can be seen as a metaphor for the covenant relationship between God and Israel, or Christ and the church. This metaphorical relationship is also a source of praise, as it reflects God's faithful love and commitment, which believers respond to with worship and adoration. Praise through love imagery is used in several psalms and prophetic writings. Imagery from love and marriage is used to describe God's relationship with his people, often leading to expressions of praise. For instance, Isaiah 54:4, quote, "For your Maker is your husband, the Lord Almighty is his name," end quote. This uses marital imagery to depict God's care and faithfulness, which naturally leads to worship and praise. Number 3, the celebration of relationship is expressed in several ways. In mutual delight, both love poetry and praise celebrate the delight and joy found in a relationship, whether between lovers or between God and his people. The joy and the satisfaction described in love poetry often find a parallel in the joy of praising God. Just as lovers delight in one another, the Psalms, for instance, often describe the joy of knowing God and experiencing his goodness. For example, see Psalm 16, verse 11. There's the covenant and commitment aspect. The commitment and covenantal aspects of marriage reflected in biblical love poetry also mirror the covenant between God and his people, which is a central theme in biblical praise. The faithfulness and love that sustain these relationships are frequently celebrated in songs of worship. Number 4, intimacy is the deepest experience in relationship. Intimacy with God. Biblical love poetry, especially in the Song of Songs, often focuses on the theme of intimacy. This theme of intimacy is also present in the worship and praise of God, where believers seek a close and personal relationship with him. Psalms like Psalm 63, 1 through 8, express a deep yearning for God's presence, much like the yearning found in romantic love poetry. Wholehearted devotion is another aspect. Both love poetry and praise poetry involve the heart's deep emotional engagement. Biblical praise is not just about acknowledging God's greatness, but it involves a heartfelt, deep emotional response to his love and grace, similar to how love poetry communicates deep personal affection. Biblical love poetry and praise are connected through their use of language, imagery, and themes that express deep devotion, whether in the context of relationship or in the relationship between God and his people. Both forms celebrate love, commitment, and the joy of intimate relationship. They often overlap in their expression of these profound emotions. So in conclusion, the book of Song of Songs stands out in the Bible for its focus on romantic and sensual love, offering a rich and poetic exploration of desire, beauty, and mutual admiration. Its vivid imagery and passionate language celebrate the joys of intimate human love, while also providing a basis for allegorical interpretations about divine love. This love poetry remains a significant and unique part of biblical literature, offering insights into the nature of love and relationships. This has been your old pal Papa Dale in the year 2024. If you have comments, questions, or prayer requests, you can leave them below. And until the next time I see you in the next lecture, it's your old Papa Dale signing off for now, saying, I pray for you and hope that you will be well and be blessed.